All right, folks, I finally figured it out. I finally figured out why NFL teams swing and miss so badly when selecting quarterbacks. I don't even know what the success rate is for first round draft picks, probably 50% or maybe even less, but I think I figured it out. Why? Because they should be looking in college for system quarterbacks. I will explain in a second. My name is Matt Mielko. I cover the 49ers for NBC Sports Bay Area. And one of the things that I first learned or first heard from Steve Young when I was a young reporter back in the day, and it's always kind of stuck with me, is that he says that NFL quarterbacks don't throw to the open receiver, they throw the receiver open. And so it's taken me quite a long time to kind of figure that out. But basically, it wasn't until Brock Purdy came along that those words many years ago from Steve Young that I first heard kind of rings true. And I kind of figured out, okay, that's what Steve Young meant by this. Speaking of Brock Purdy and Steve Young, Wednesday, September 25th, I'm taping this on that very day at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Is going to be a cool thing on Fox Sports 1. It's called NFL Films Presents. Back in May for the Dwight Clark Legacy series, raising money for the Golden Heart Fund, we got together Steve Young, Brock Purdy, Alex Smith, and Jeff Garcia to talk the art of playing the quarterback position, as well as the inherent pressure that comes along with that from this storied franchise. Obviously, Joe Montana set the bar at a ridiculously high level. And then everybody else who came along after that, beginning with Steve Young, has in some way been impacted or felt that pressure to succeed. So check that out. Fox Sports 1, NFL Films Presents. I was the moderator of that panel. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm kind of excited to see what that show entails, how they edited it, and what they kind of focused in on. So can't wait to see that. Okay, so going back to evaluating quarterbacks, teams should be looking for system quarterbacks. And I know that's the knock on Brock Purdy. It's a really backhanded, well, it's not even a compliment. I think people don't mean it as a compliment, but it really should be. And what I think I would do if I were evaluating quarterbacks is I would stop, I'd have the clicker in my hand watching college quarterbacks, and I'd hit that clicker right as the quarterback is committing to throw. As soon as that arm goes back, I'd stop it and I'd look at where his receivers are, where the defense is, and everything else. And if you can clearly identify who he's throwing to, in other words, there's a receiver running wide open, I'd kind of almost discount the play. Like, that's rarely going to happen in the NFL. So no big deal if he completes a 35-yard pass down the field if a guy doesn't have a defender within 5 yards of him. But if when you stop it and the quarterback is right here and you can't tell who he's throwing to and he still completes the pass, now I think you have something. And that's, I think, the part of quarterback play in the NFL that gets underrated as players, quarterbacks transition from college to the NFL. The guys who are oftentimes the first round draft pick or the top 5 draft pick are the guys that can run around and make these tremendous throws kind of off script. But in the NFL, if you don't stick to the script, it's nice to have that ability, that playmaking ability in your back pocket, but you can't rely on that alone in the NFL. And I think Brock Purdy does have that ability to make plays off script. And I look no further than a couple of the touchdown passes that he threw to Juwan Jennings on Sunday, where kind of second reaction, it was pretty clear that Jennings wasn't the first person in the progression. And I was also fascinated by the play that Purdy did not make. And everybody has probably seen the clip of Brandon Ayuk running down the field late in the game, 4 minutes and 50 seconds left or something along those lines. And a touchdown would have won the game. And if Ayuk was the primary guy on that play, And that was the pass route called. Purdy hits him, game over. Still, should he have hit him? I would say yes, he should have hit him. But let's go back through that play and kind of figure out what happened. Um, the first thing that Purdy had to do was he had to know the defense that the Rams were playing, and then of course all the pass routes that all of his guys were running with that defense. Well, the Rams showed a defense that Ayuk was able to recognize was a busted coverage, and he did what he should have in running to the open space. But before Purdy could make that decision to throw to him, there's probably a lot going on in his mind, including, well, if that guy busted, what is the defense they're running? Or was his initial read wrong? Were the Rams in a different defense? And then he had to account for where's that safety. So he couldn't just blindly throw that pass to Ayuk without recognizing where the safety was. There's another point that was made to me by a fellow reporter who I won't say who it was. Maybe I will later. I'll run it by him and see if it's okay with him. But he brought up this point that I think is really good. Brandon Ayuk did not take part in the offseason program. He did not take part in training camp. And so, as much as they can say that, they're on the same page and they can just pick right up where they left off, I just wonder, as did this reporter, if for a split second, Purdy wondered whether Ayuk was running the route that he should have been running. In other words, he was supposed to run a curl. He ends up running a go. I wonder if that caused some confusion with Purdy just because they haven't been on the same page through all these months. And in the back of his mind, I wonder if he thought that it was Ayuk running the wrong pattern. And so did that cause a split second of hesitancy as well? So he didn't make that throw. 49ers pass up an opportunity, which kind of was handed to them on a silver platter through that busted coverage of the Rams. So was it Brock Purdy's fault that he didn't recognize that and make the play? I would say yes, but I'd also say that there's a lot going on, and his knowledge of the game in a lot of ways probably prevented him from making that throw, whereas maybe some other quarterbacks would make that throw and it would have been good, but that other quarterbacks might have also made other throws, not that didn't turn out as well because they didn't recognize the defense and everything else that goes along with it. After the game against the Vikings, Purdy got some attention for seeing Brian Flores, the defense coordinator, on the field from the Vikings and telling him, "Your scheme, man, it's crazy." And I took that as a very positive sign that Purdy totally understands what he's seeing in the course of a game. And what the Vikings do defensively is they try to confuse the quarterback. They try to show something, a pre-snap look, and then immediately rotate into a completely different coverage. And speaking of Alex Smith, who's on that panel I talked about, I watched a segment with him on NFL Countdown, Sunday Countdown, where they stopped the clicker right at the snap of the ball, and he tried to read what the Vikings were doing defensively, and he missed on the first two. He got the coverages completely wrong, and then the third one he did get correct. But going back to the physical skills and the mental skills, the reason CJ Stroud with the Houston Texans had such a great rookie season is because he has both. He has the physical tools that put him in position to be the number one overall pick. Of course, he was taken number two after Bryce Young goes number one to the Panthers. But he really struggled, even more so than Purdy, with that Vikings defense. And I don't think there's a team in the land. Let's just take the 49ers and the Texans out of the equation. Of the other 30 teams, I would bet that every team would take CJ Stroud over Brock Purdy. But in these particular games against the Vikings, a week apart in Minnesota, where both had to deal with crowd noise and everything else, CJ Stroud, 20 of 31 for 215 yards, one touchdown, two interceptions, passer rating of 68.5. Purdy was 28 of 36, 319 yards, one touchdown, one interception, passer rating of 101.3. So um, I do think that uh, Purdy's secret sauce, the thing that makes him so good, and the part that it was so difficult to evaluate was just his ability to diagnose defenses matched with the routes that his guys are running to know where those open windows are going to be. And it kind of brings me back to, speaking of the Vikings, Sam Darnold, all the skill in the world, number 3 overall pick a few years ago, still a young guy. And you might know this, but I took a lot of heat a year ago for saying that he actually might be the most talented thrower of the football that I've seen with the 49ers. I might even said that the 49ers have ever had. And those in the know agreed with me. I ran that by Steve Young and Alex Smith, and they were both like, I don't disagree. He can flat out throw the football. But was he a good quarterback? No, he wasn't in his NFL career because he didn't run a system. And it took, I think, the year behind Brock Purdy, learning from him, learning from the 49ers coaching staff, and then being paired with a really good coach, Kevin O'Connell. And so I realize it's only 3 games, and there's a lot of football to be played, but Sam Darnold is a guy that appears now to be running a system and not just relying on his strong arm and everything else for NFL success. Um, hey, as of right now, I have 5,820 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you all for watching, and let's see if we can get that number over 6,000 by the end of the day. And I owe it all to you guys who have taken to this YouTube. I really appreciate all the positive comments about what I bring to the conversation and, whatever, my demeanor, the way I approach my job. I'm not going to give you hot takes. I'm just going to tell you what I think is what I see, what I learn, and it's going to be a very even keel approach. So I hope that's okay with you. Well, one viewer, Permitmon, uh, did respond and said, "Hey, I think you gave me a free pass to Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga. Their lack of speed should be a concern." I thought that was pretty good comment. They're both in the 4.65 speed range as far as the 40. But they're both playmakers. They both get their hands on the football. They both have the ability to create takeaways. But I'd say because they lack the top end speed, you're right. I mean, they do really have to rely on their film study and their diagnostic approach to playing that back end. The 49ers have struggled with the deep ball, no question about it. And Hofanga had some responsibility. I'm not quite sure how you percentage it, but on the deep ball, Tutu Atwell, the 50-yard reception where Hufanga was the deep half on that, and Charvarius Ward was covering Tutu Atwell at the line of scrimmage and followed him down the field. So, that potentially was a play where Hufanga could have gotten there and broken that pass up with better speed. But, there's the old saying, do you know what do you call a safety who has top end speed? You call him a cornerback. And when you look at it, yeah, there are some really fast guys who play the safety position. Antoine Winfield was a 4.4 guy. Minka Fitzpatrick, when he came out, was mid 4.4s. But then you have other guys like Justin Simmons, who's in that range, 4.6. And Kyle Hamilton, probably the best safety in the game, is right around there, 4.59. So you don't need that top end speed to be a safety, a successful safety in the NFL. I mean, obviously it never hurts, but this is an area where I think you're right, though, Permit Mon, that it is a vulnerability, at least what we've seen so far. 49ers giving up the deep ball, not only giving up the deep ball, but also being called for pass interference on the deep ball, which means that usually those guys are in recovery mode when it comes to that. I do a thing every Tuesday. It's called 49ers Overreactions. And of course, these last 2 weeks, there have been a lot of reactions and overreactions. I'm going to drop the link to my latest overreactions down below in the description. But here are some from this last week that dropped on Tuesday. One is Purdy is solid even without the Avengers. And I'm telling you, I think I'd take it a step further. I think Brock Purdy has been and continues to be outstanding. And I think the only reason that he doesn't get just that the only reason he doesn't get categorized as one of the absolute best in the game is because what I talked about. He lacks the traits that people love to see. And most people would take a guy who can throw the ball 70 yards and is running around and making plays over a guy who just runs the system. And I'm telling you, what college evaluators are lacking is that they should be looking more for the system quarterback, the guy who throws receivers open and doesn't just throw to the open receiver, a guy who just doesn't run around, and then looking for somebody who breaks free, 6 seconds after the snap of the ball. It's the guys who can make plays on time. And then also, Purdy has that ability to make plays off script as well. Here's a good one. The lack of first round picks from the Trey Lance trade has really caught up to the 49ers depth chart, and it's showing. You know what? I would agree with that. I think that that is a very good point. The 49ers went all in to get Trey Lance in the 2021 NFL draft. Of course, that was more of a reflection on them trying to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo and them getting cheaper at the quarterback position and having a guy on a rookie deal for 4 years. But what it did was it did take the 49ers away from the possibility of adding, you know, was it a first round pick in 2021, a first round pick in 2022, a first round pick in 2023, and then a third round pick in 2022. So, in other words, the pick in 2021 would have been the 12th overall selection. They move up from 12 to 3 in that draft. But in 2022 and 2023, you're probably talking, one of the final 4 picks of the first round. Still, 49ers could have had the ability to add some players. So yes, it all was kind of a wash a little bit from the fact that they were able to get Brock Purdy with the number 262 and final pick of the 2022 NFL draft. But yes, their depth was impacted significantly by not having those other draft picks. Someone says, worst regular season loss of Kyle Shanahan's 49ers career. I would say that that's absolutely true. And part of it is because, I saw the stat. I think the 49ers were 50-0 under Kyle Shanahan when they had a 2-touchdown lead in the second half of games. Of course, we know of some 10-point leads that they let slip away in the postseason. But as far as having a significant lead and being in position to win against what I would consider a lesser opponent, that's what made this game so difficult. Initially, going back to Brock Purdy, I was thinking like one of the worst plays that Purdy made in that game was running out of bounds with when the 49ers took over with 151 left. That was on a scramble, running to his right, stays in bounds. 49ers are able to use 40 seconds. And one of the things that kind of caught me was that the 49ers do such a good job. In fact, I would say the fan base is probably frustrated because they do such a good job of running the clock down at the end of the first half to give teams or to not give the opposition a chance to score again before the end of the first half. What was kind of inconsistent was that the 49ers did not do that at the end of the second half, at the end of the fourth quarter, at the end of regulation in that game against the Rams. Now, why? They did do a huddle up situation after the second down completion to Brandon Ayuk, and they were able to run some time off, basically 40 seconds off the clock. But all in all, that series with one first down, they only ran 55 seconds off the clock when they punted to the Rams, special teams breakdown, and then the Rams get in position for the game-winning field goal. But Shanahan said that yes, there. When I asked him about this on Monday, yes, there were priorities. One of the priorities was to not give the Rams another opportunity, but the top priority was to win the game. And not to again put this all on Ronnie Bell, but if he makes that catch, the 49ers get the best of both worlds. They're able to run the clock down as long as they want to take it, 2 seconds. And then at that point, from about the 25-yard line, that would be what, a 43-yard field goal attempt. They could have run the ball in the middle with Jordan Mason to pick up a few more yards. So you're looking at, let's just say, a 40-yard field goal attempt on the final play of the game to win it. So that dropped pass from Ronnie Bell was a killer in a lot of different ways. But could they have run the ball on first down on that? Could they have run the ball on first down after the IU completion? Yes. The problem is at that point, they still would have had to make a play way down the field in order to get into field goal range to win it. So that was a top priority at that point. The way it turned out was certainly not the way it should have been, certainly not the way it was drawn up. But again, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. And Ronnie Bell catches that ball, and the 49ers board the plane going home to San Jose International Airport, with them having the 27-24 victory and not the Rams. Someone says 49ers won't make the playoffs. I don't, I'm not there yet. I think the 49ers are still a talented team. I look at the NFC. I just don't see a team that's just going to run away from this thing. Yes, the 49ers are 1-2. They have a lot of work to do, but with 14 games left in the season, there's still a lot of time for them to turn this thing around and get back atop the NFC West. Dre Greenlaw is more valuable than we thought, and the 49ers D is not the same without him. That much, I think that is not an overreaction at all. And we'll see what the 49ers do at the linebacker position with Devondre Campbell. Certainly looked like they were trying to work D Winters into the mix on Sunday against the Rams. So we'll see where they are with that. Devondre Campbell has not been good in pass coverage. That is a strength of Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner combined. Those guys are every down linebackers who are kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways. But Dre Greenlaw told me in the offseason he's not coming back until he's ready, because he wants to make a major impact late in the season. He wants to hit the ground running, and he wants to be there if the 49ers get back to the Super Bowl, and he wants to make an impact in that game to win the Super Bowl and push the 49ers over the top. So I'm thinking at least through half the season, Dre Greenlaw will be on the sideline. Let's see here. 49ers gave the wrong wide receiver the big contract. Well, of course, they did give Juwan Jennings a contract too, a nice contract, 7.5 to 7.6 million a year over 2 years. Of course, not the kind of numbers that Brandon Ayuk got with his contract, but 49ers are fortunate to have Juwan Jennings for this year and next year as well. And let's see what happens when everybody's healthy. Does Juwan Jennings have a bigger role than he's had in the past? But right now, he's the team's leading receiver through 3 games. We'll see if it stays that way with Deebo Samuel out for probably another week, and then Brandon Ayuk trying to get up to speed. But I think when everybody's back, when Deebo Samuel, when Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, I do think that the 49ers now have flexibility of using a lot of different receivers, and certainly Juwan Jennings is in line for his best season ever in the NFL. And obviously 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns puts him right on track. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and like, subscribe, comment, all that. I try to answer as many comments as I can. So I'll continue to do that. And until next time, I will see you.